Shame. We all feel it. Yet, shame is the emotion that can truly destroy our self-image like no other. This is because when we experience shame, we become convinced that we are the thing that is wrong. Now, in the brain, there is an ongoing conversation among multiple factions that are all competing to control our behavioral output. These include the threat system, the drive system, and the soothing system. When these factions are in balance, we feel balanced. However, when shame intrudes, we become hijacked by our threat system, the very system in our brain that is activated when we are physically attacked. In response to shame, our cortex, or our rational thinking brain, goes offline and gives way to fight, flight, freeze responses, mediated by the threat system. The threat system dominates when we are experiencing shame because our brain cannot tell the difference between an actual threat or a perceived emotional threat. Now, the consequence of any traumatic event, including the event itself, can create deep-rooted feelings of shame. According to Brené Brown, shame thrives and grows exponentially in a culture of secrecy, silence, and judgment. Whereas when you give shame kindness or empathy, shame is eradicated. Self-compassion has a similar effect on shame as if receiving empathy from another. Indeed, self-compassion can be considered an antidote to shame because it deactivates our brain's threat system while activating our self-soothing system. I know of a little girl whose 3-year-old body was tortured. She experienced indescribable shame because she was enslaved and trafficked. Yes, modern-day slavery or human trafficking is all around us and often hidden in plain sight. A 2022 study reported that over 49.6 million individuals are enslaved globally. Although the exact number of trafficking victims in the U.S. is unknown, it is thought to reach into the hundreds of thousands annually. And sadly, data suggest and support that individuals are most likely trafficked by a family member or a caregiver. This was my story. I was that 3-year-old little girl who was enslaved and trafficked. Now, while no one is immune to feeling or experiencing shame, individuals who have suffered the kinds of sexual trauma that I have experienced are more likely to experience the surreptitious effects of shame. This is because these types of traumas are extremely dehumanizing and humiliating. And when searching for help, survivors are often not believed or are pathologized by the very experts trained to treat them. The perfect recipe for shame to form and grow. Even when the abuse was no longer occurring, shame dominated my life in all areas. It made me feel trapped in a tornadic blackness of anxiety, panic, and despair. I was unable to live a full, functional, healthy life, and it prevented me from healing. You see, I thought I was unworthy. And I actually believed that I wore a metaphoric scarlet letter S on my shirt for all to see, which represented slut to me. And I truly thought that everybody viewed me as a slut as they saw me walking down the street. The challenging thing about shame is that once it descends, it can be very difficult to get out of. This is because shame changes the brain in insidious ways. It rewires our neural connections. It enhances our brain's inherent negativity bias and leaves individuals, such as myself, trapped in a cycle of despair, isolation, and depression. The most excruciating breaking is the one done in complete silence. Every piece of your body hits the floor in the loudest way, yet no one hears the chattering. No one hears because you have perfected the cleanup behind closed doors. And once someone looks into your eyes, not a trace of your broken soul remains. Although no words can adequately express what I endured, the enormity of the pain, or the monumental effort it has taken to function in this world, my intent in discussing this today is to raise awareness of these all too common nefarious acts, to bring light, hope, and healing, and to elevate the conversation to create strategies for change. Now, I cannot remember a time in my young life when the horror of sexual violence was not present. Yet, I survived. However, I remained a terrified little girl screaming for help inside a woman's body. I experienced violent, intrusive, all-consuming flashbacks while convulsing in tears on the floor daily, trying to hold on to anything I could to keep myself alive. In order to get myself out, I had to paradoxically learn to lean into or embrace my darkness in order to find the light within. It took time and much hard work. You see, the light of hope is always there. It is just often quieter and harder to find within the cacophonous blackness. As I learned how I experienced shame, I learned to be with this emotion with self-compassion and treat myself as if I would treat anybody else who was going through the same thing. For example, I would email myself statements of love and care to remind myself that I was safe and not alone. I also wrote a list of at least 10 gratitudes daily, no matter how badly I felt, and I still do this today. I was able to generate positive emotions by embracing the negative ones with compassion. And I rewired my brain and was able to be with the emotional wounds of the past that fed my shame. Overall, I have learned that the core belief that I am enough comes only when I live inside my story with compassion. And that is true for us all. When I was a child, my heart and soul were shattered. As an adult, I have realized that there's a crack in everything, and that is often how the light gets in. I urge you today to befriend your dark and shattered parts so you can embrace the infinite power of your light. I urge you to be the light and see the light. I also ask that you, as Theodore Roosevelt originally said, dare greatly. Dare greatly by rising and communicating to survivors that they are not alone. Dare greatly by sitting with the broken. Dare greatly by taking steps to eradicate our societal culture of rape and incest. Dare greatly by remembering that we are all connected to one another by a force that is greater than ourselves. And this force is one grounded in love and compassion.